Carrot, grasshopper,
What
medium.
people for sure.
They're not even thinking about Jesus.
I want to
Wake up,
talk
people.
about the calendar. A poem for Romans. Rome, Rome, Rome your boat. Is this all a dream? What got us in this mess? You may think it's trivial, and I can totally agree. I know the history of the world is something of contention, but the artifacts we have and the facts listed below about who and what and when and where and how it all got this way, I could go way back, and maybe we will later, but as for now, I'll talk about the calendar. We say it's after 2000. 2000 years from what? Let's not answer that question for now and start with what we know. There was a guy named Nero, not Neo from the Matrix, but this stuff is off the wall. No amount of pills can change it. Would rather it be a dream than the truth, but here it is. Nero was a Caesar of Rome. We all know this place, right? Rome is this dynasty that rules the world today. When did it start? Not at zero, rather with some hero, a man, actually two, brothers, actually twins, followed by stories that pull on heartstrings and brought in the people. If something this good is the foundation of this city, that's the place I want to be, they would say, while wandering the land in search for prosperity. Don't quote me on this, but when in Greece, we don't do as Greeks do. They moved to Rome, invented a new religion, almost a mirror of before, maybe or maybe not, nothing before Christ. The Harappan civilization from a long time ago, Persia, but I'm off track like I promised I wouldn't. Back to Nero. Know what he did? He killed his own mother. He killed her as a Caesar in front of all the people so he could marry a new wife. See, the divorce thing in the unholy Roman Empire at the time, this before they went all Christian, was all that Catholics practice today by different names. That's where I want to keep this story. I want to keep this relevant and not bring up the Bible. In fact, we cannot bring it up for fear of policy and offending some party. But we have history of Nero and what he did to his family. Again, you might say it's trivial, but I must tell you this. The guy was so upset about killing his wife after killing his mother and divorcing his baby's mother that he lit a fire. He lit a fire because he was mad. Then the fear set in that he would be captured for being a pussy and lighting the fire. You see, a Caesar has a reputation, and at that time, more than just a king, he claimed to be emperor since the time of Julius Caesar. That's probably why we call it BC. See, it's nothing before Christ, and it's deep, just trust me. Caesar gave the people the money, stamped with the stories that inspired the people and commanded respect, not because he earned it, because he somehow delivered it from before his own very birth. A god is a man, not a demigod or with blemish, nothing but the only one. That's how this all becomes fact. Imagine the time Nero is suddenly afraid. The people will know that I'm not their father, that I just started the fire and did not create. I simply said I was something more, perhaps because I thought power was awesome. But we all eventually go to the crate on our due date. He suddenly thinks of a scapegoat, a goat-like people he could use to escape. The fate that he knew waited if people knew the truth was inevitable dismissal of his position as the one.
So are they all honorable men.
With or without a ring, to rule them all with love and hate. So he blames these so-called Christians, like in World War II, I'm sure it was just the so-called Jews. What's in a name? When you speak of a people, it's always up to perspective, because people are people by any name, and you cannot see the forest but for all the trees. A tree is not a forest, and beginnings and endings and borders is another subject. Oh wait, that's what wars are for. Always warring. It's never ending, it seems. So Nero's Rome went on a rampage, searching out all the so-calleds who would have set the fire at Caesar's back door that he lit himself. And it's all blamed on them. This might take a while, but that's not where it ends. I know there is much in the middle, but if you will, I must fast forward. Later on, you see, there is this time where we would have to touch on Constantine. Perhaps before his time, he practiced what? Good government, you might ask? For in the least, he tried to balance the fear of the people in one hand and his own life in the other. If one outweighed the other, he could kill his own brother in public just to show them how godlike he is. Because you see, before the end, I will give you the punchline. It never lasts long for a man calling himself God. The one true conclusion is they weren't, and it's just vanity. Although the stories they tell to justify the stories only justify the stories when people believe them. tells all lies the truth doth tell, and time tells the story of heaven and hell. Kings and emperors, specifically Constantine, is quite fearful. He himself perhaps quite opportunistic. He was the one that took all those customs, the tools in his tool chest to control all the people, a different manner of traditions based on a pantheon of demigods. And they are what made all this you better respect, or like a thief in the night, they might come and get you or dry up your fields in thy sight. But that never happened. Mercury didn't bring a message, not without seance in the very least, the same as Greece with their Hermes, and don't get me started on Greece. I do have to say this, though, that when those old priests up and left Greece, they moved over to Rome. They never cut off their ties with the known Holy Land because it never ceased to be the boiling pot of pro-tension, a place where kings would meet, try to impose their rule, but most were too meek to say they needed a man-god and all their stories to make them complete. So in Greece were the stories, and before that they were in Persia. Going back in time clockwise, those same perhaps hairpins were found in Babylon, and they increased and increased, eventually learned the folly of their ways, splitting the one true God into 7 or more like the days. Those days we personify in English with Thor and Mars and the moon and Mercury. The sun and Saturn are the gods of the pantheon. And did you know the name for September comes from Roman for 7, but it's the 9th month of, quote, the year of our Lord. Octo is 8, Novo is 9, Deca is 10. Why, you might ask, is our 9, 10, 11, and 12? In July and Augustus, well, of course that good old Gregorian would be nothing without it. How would the Holy Roman See have allowed a change? I could again go back farther this time, but I can't, for this is more current, dealing with the now ever diligent, as this always comes back around. If you can bear with me, Constantine did what he did and stopped the exile of those so-calleds and accepted a new religion, in fact created his own, took all the references they wanted and renamed his pantheon. Isis is Mary, Mercury is that guy they killed 300 years previous, before Nero and Augustus. It's conjecture about Julius. And what the pantheon is, just so we are clear, is a church used today called Saint Mary and the Martyrs. Again, another Greek inheritance, a temple built by Marcus Agrippa as a temple to all the gods of ancient Rome, an adjective meaning temple consecrated in Greek. And now it's all of a sudden Caesar's home. Not until AD 800 did they crown a king under the Holy Roman Empire, because those pesky so-calleds were kicking up a fuss that king is what got us into this mess. And nothing is above God. All the stuff he grew up with as a man with his religion transferred over to start the Holy Roman Empire. When did it end, you might ask? Well, let's see. There are Catholic churches in every city. It all started in Rome, with Constantine naming all his heroes anew. He had nothing in his religion that didn't say don't lie to infidels or be a king to your people. The laws that come from stories are just that, laws of man. Men attempting to tell stories so you will believe them.
In the presence of a god, it isn't wise to...
How is that different than money? You certainly will say this is my story, but I'm just a man. I can't claim to tell stories. I am just that, embodied word. If I am seen as good by this world, what does that serve me? How does accepting that I am somehow superior not weaken my goodness and replace me with not a smidgen of doubt about how great I am or what laws get forgot when me or my people of choosing, we select who lives and dies like we are God? What is God? I know I'm not.
It's not the lash they fear. It is my divine power. That I'm a generous God. I can make you rich beyond all measure.
No, I used to pick at your father every Thursday. Every Thursday. Every Thursday? Wow. Wow. What a wasted life. Thank you. I think so, eh? A Polish... My son said. Plus, Pierre promised he'd legalize marijuana and he let us down. Wasted life trying to abolish ignorance.